The Hudson Line Anomaly Part 1. The iron and the soil-thin cross measured his life in milliseconds and predictive algorithms. Sitting in his glass-walled corner office in the Flatiron District, the world was nothing more than a giant data feed. He was brilliant, hyper-caffeinated, and chronically insomniac. For 42 hours, his eyes had not left the flickering green glow of his monitors. He was engineering a massive, high-stakes agricultural futures trader. Midnight deadline that would either cement his position at the hedge fund or wipe out a year of predictive modeling. But a glitch in his data stream had forced him out of his sterile sanctuary. The algorithm was blind. It lacked ground truth validation for the agricultural corridor of the Hudson Valley. To catch the late-night European market opening, he needed real-world land metrics. And he needed them now. He boarded the late-evening Metro North train, his laptop balanced precariously on his knees, his fingers flying across the keyboard. Sitting directly across the aisle from him was Clara Hayes. Clara was the living definition of everything Ethan's algorithms couldn't predict. 2 years ago, she had been a rising corporate landscape architect in the city, trapped in the same suffocating loop Ethan inhabited. She had walked away from it all, trading designer heels for insulated work boots to restore her family's struggling heritage apple orchard in Cold Spring. Tonight, she smelled faintly of wood smoke, crushed pine needles, and the clean, biting chill of the northern air. Her hands were calloused, her denim jacket worn at the elbows, and her expression completely unbothered by the frantic energy radiating from the man across the aisle. Ethan glanced up from his screen, his eyes narrowing at her muddy boots. "You're tracking the Hudson Valley shelf into the train car," he muttered, his voice dry from too many espressos and too little sleep. Clara didn't flinch. She leaned back, a slow, amused smile touching her lips. "And you're bringing the high-stress anxiety of Wall Street into a quiet commute. Some things are just hard to leave behind." Part 2. The blackout circuit train never made it to Cold Spring. Just past Peekskill, the furious November nor'easter made its definitive move. A massive, ancient oak tree, heavy with freezing rain, collapsed directly onto the overhead catenary wires, with a deafening mechanical groan and a shower of bright blue electrical sparks. The train died. The overhead fluorescent tube flickered twice and went dark. The steady, comforting hum of the climate control system cut out instantly, replaced by the ominous, rhythmic drumming of freezing sleet against the double-paned glass. The train car dropped into a heavy shadows and amber darkness, lit only by the dim, low-voltage emergency LED strips along the floor. "Attention passengers," the conductor's voice crackled through the static of a battery-powered megaphone. "We have a total power grid failure on the track. The heat is offline. We are looking at a minimum 3-hour delay before a rescue engine can reach our sector." Ethan let out a sharp, cynical laugh. He checked his phone. 1 bar of fluctuating roaming service. His laptop battery indicator read 22%. The digital countdown to his trading deadline was ticking away relentlessly in the background. Trading window lockout. "Oh, 1 2 minutes, perfect," Ethan hissed, slamming his laptop shut. "An absolute logistical collapse. It's just weather, Wall Street," Clara said softly, her voice remarkably calm in the freezing dark. She pulled her knees up to her chest, tucking her hands into her sleeves. "The world doesn't stop spinning just because your Wi-Fi dies. My world does." Ethan shot back, his jaw tight. "If I don't validate the land use metrics for the southern Hudson corridor before the midnight bell, the entire trade parameters collapse. The model requires an exact calculation of soil density and canopy moisture to trigger the capital release." Clara went entirely still. Her eyes, sharp and intelligent in the amber shadows, locked onto his face. "The Southern Hudson Corridor. You're the quantitative analyst backing the predatory land buyout model for the Cold Spring agricultural shelf." Ethan stiffened. "It's not predatory. It's an efficiency allocation model. It's my farm, you idiot," Clara said, her voice dropping into a dangerous, quiet register that cut through the sound of the storm outside. "Your brilliant little algorithm is trying to devalue my heritage orchard by classifying it as underutilized wetlands." Part 3. The Thermal Friction Fee. Cold settled into the steel train car with terrifying speed. Within an hour, the temperature inside dropped toward freezing. The breath of the remaining passengers rose in ghostly white plumes in the dim light. The conductor walked down the aisle, handing out a single, thin, silver mylar emergency space blanket to each row. "We're running low," the conductor whispered, his teeth chattering. "You two will have to share." He dropped the crinkling metallic sheet onto Clara's lap and moved on. Clara looked at the blanket, then looked at Ethan. He was shivering. His shoulders hunched, his face pale with exhaustion. Yet his stubborn pride kept him pressed firmly against the freezing metal window frame. "Move over," Clara commanded. "I'm fine," Ethan lied, his teeth clicking together. "You're an insomniac city boy who is about to get hypothermia," Clara said, ripping the silver blanket open. The loud crinkling sound echoed in the quiet car. "Get closer. Space blankets only work if you trap the body heat. Lean in, or we both freeze." Ethan hesitated, then slowly slid across the vinyl seat. The moment their shoulders touched, the narrative shifted. The contrast was visceral. Ethan was a solid block of cold, rigid tension. Clara was a radiating source of grounded, organic warmth. She pulled the silver sheet over both of them, tucking it behind his back, forcing him flush against her side. The proximity was absolute, suffocating, and magnetic. In the dark, wrapped in a cocoon of crinkled silver, every sensory detail magnified. Ethan could feel the steady, rhythmic rise and fall of her chest. He could smell the rich, earthy scent of her hair apples. With smoke and honest labor, Clara looked up, her face inches from his. The amber emergency light caught the gold flecks in her hazel eyes. The cynical armor Ethan had worn for 30 years began to develop hairline fractures under the intensity of her unbroken gaze. "Your math is missing the human variable." "Ethan," she whispered, her breath warm against his cheek. "You look at my land and see numbers on a spreadsheet. You don't see the century-old roots holding the soil together. You don't see the work." Ethan's voice lost its sharp, corporate edge, dropping into a raw, quiet confession. "The numbers are safe, Clara. They don't change their minds. They don't leave. I built the model to control the variables because everything else in life is chaotic." "Love is a chaotic variable," Clara murmured, her eyes dropping to his lips, then back to his eyes. "You can't code your way out of vulnerability." The physical chemistry between them grew heavier than the storm outside. Ethan's hand, stiff from the cold, slowly found hers beneath the blanket. His fingers intertwined with hers, his calluses catching against hers. The heat of her skin felt like a shockwave traveling straight up his arm, slowing his racing heart into a deep, steady cadence. Part 4. The shared return laptop battery, 7% time to deadline. 20-minute test screen flared to life one last time. Ethan stared at the flashing cursor. He had the capital. He had the platform. But he was missing the true structural integrity of the valley. "Tell me," Ethan whispered, his eyes locked onto Clara's face in the dark. "Give me the real data. If the model is wrong about the soil density of the Cold Spring Shelf, tell me why." Clara looked at his laptop, then at his hand still holding hers. She saw the genuine, desperate intelligence in his eyes, not malice. Just a man who had forgotten how to look at the world without a screen. The clay content in the lower third acts as a natural water retention barrier, Clara said, her voice smooth, rhythmic, and clear. "It doesn't flood. It self-irrigates." The heritage trees have deep taproot systems that stabilize the entire hillside. If your fund buys that land and overwrites it with corporate logistics, the runoff will destroy the entire valley ecosystem within 5 years. Ethan didn't hesitate. He opened the core architecture of his algorithm. Using his final percentages of battery life and the weak, single bar of cellular signal, he didn't execute the trade buyout. Instead, he rewrote the predictive parameters. He inserted her land data as a permanent conservation variable, locking the capital into a long-term, high-yield sustainable agricultural trust that guaranteed her orchard's funding while securing his firm's green energy compliance metrics. He hit enter just as the screen went black. Transaction complete, capital allocation, secured conservation variable, enforced status, System stable, the silence that followed was profound. The laptop died, leaving them in the pure, undisturbed amber light of the disabled train car. "You just threw away your efficiency model," Clara whispered, her eyes wide with realization. "No," Ethan said, his voice low, steady, and entirely focused on her. He reached up, his thumb gently tracing the line of her jaw, feeling the rapid, electric flutter of her pulse. "I just corrected the anomaly. I found a better variable." He leaned in, his lips meeting hers in a deep, lingering kiss that tasted of the cold winter rain outside and the burning, irreversible heat of a new beginning. Her hands moved to his neck, pulling him closer, erasing the final inches of corporate distance between them. When the rescue engine finally groaned to a halt,